Look at a wild wolf sprinting through a dense forest. Look at a cheetah accelerating to 70 miles per hour in 3 seconds. Look at a silverback gorilla deadlifting nearly 2,000 pounds of raw weight. These animals are operating at the absolute pinnacle of physical performance. They do not stretch before they run. They do not suffer from chronic lower back pain. They do not blow out their knees simply by stepping off a rock at the wrong angle. In the wild, structural failure means immediate death. Evolution ruthlessly eliminates bad engineering. A predator with a bad back starves. Prey with a weak knee gets eaten. And then there is the human being. We are the undisputed apex predators of the planet. We have conquered every environment on Earth, yet almost every adult human walking the planet today suffers from some form of chronic, inexplicable physical pain. We get slipped discs from simply bending over to pick up a pen. We tear the ligaments in our knees just by twisting our legs. Our ankles roll, our arches collapse, our necks ache, and our teeth rot in our own jaws. We tend to blame this on modern life, on sitting at desks, looking at phones, or not exercising enough. But the truth is far darker and deeply rooted in our DNA. The human body is not suffering because of modern furniture. The human body is suffering because it is, from a purely architectural standpoint, a catastrophic engineering failure. To understand why your body is structurally broken, we have to travel back roughly 6 million years to the dense forests of ancient Africa. Our ancestors were arboreal primates. They lived in the trees. Their bodies were perfectly, beautifully adapted for a life of climbing, swinging, and walking on all fours. But then the global climate shifted. The massive African rainforests began to dry out and shrink, replaced by endless open savannas of tall grass. Our ancestors were forced down from the trees. Out in the open grass, walking on all fours was a death sentence. You could not see predators coming, and the hot African sun beat down entirely on your exposed back. To survive, our ancestors did something completely unprecedented. They stood up. They became bipedal. This single evolutionary decision is what made us human. It lifted our faces to the horizon. It reduced the surface area of our bodies exposed to the deadly sun. Most importantly, it completely freed our front limbs. We no longer needed our hands to walk. Our hands were now free to hold rocks, craft spears, carry fire, and eventually build civilization. Standing up gave us the world. But evolution is not an engineer. Evolution does not build things from scratch. It only modifies what already exists. When we stood up, evolution took a skeleton that had spent hundreds of millions of years perfecting horizontal movement and violently forced it to operate vertically. We took the chassis of a 4-door sedan and tried to stand it on its rear bumper. The most terrifying consequence of this biological hack is the human spine. In a 4-legged animal, the spine is an architectural masterpiece. It functions exactly like a suspension bridge. It is a horizontal arch supported by 4 sturdy pillars, the legs. The internal organs hang neatly below it, and the weight of the body is perfectly distributed across the entire structure. When humans stood up, we took that horizontal suspension bridge and flipped it straight up into the air, turning it into a vertical column. Suddenly, the spine was no longer distributing weight. It was supporting it. The entire weight of your head, your arms, and your torso was now pressing straight down, compressing the delicate cartilage discs between your vertebrae. But a straight vertical stick cannot balance weight efficiently, so evolution had to bend our spine to keep us from falling forward. It introduced a series of sharp, unnatural curves, the cervical curve in the neck and the deep lumbar curve in the lower back. This S-shaped curve is an absolute biomechanical nightmare. It creates extreme stress points, particularly at the very bottom of the lower back. Every time you walk, jump, or carry something heavy, gravity mercilessly crushes the lower lumbar discs. This is why 80% of humans will experience severe back pain in their lives. Herniated discs and sciatica are not diseases of modern aging. They are the biological penalty for walking upright. Gravity is constantly trying to collapse a structure that was never meant to stand, and the structural compromises did not stop at the spine. The weight of the newly upright body had to go somewhere, and it crashed directly down into the pelvis and the knees. The human knee is one of the most absurdly fragile joints in the animal kingdom. In a quadruped, the knees only take a fraction of the body's weight, and the force is distributed evenly among 4 limbs. In a human, the knee joint has to bear the entire weight of the upper body while balancing on just 2 legs. And structurally, the knee is nothing more than 2 massive sticks of bone, the femur and the tibia, balanced on top of each other, held together by a few fragile rubber bands of tissue called ligaments. Because we walk on 2 legs, every time we take a step, we have to balance on 1 leg for a fraction of a second. This forces the knee to constantly absorb extreme twisting and lateral forces it was never initially designed to handle. A single awkward pivot can snap an ACL, permanently crippling a human in the wild. If you look further down, the situation becomes even more chaotic. Look at your foot. Your foot contains 26 individual bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments. Why does a structure designed to simply hit flat ground need 26 moving bones? The answer is that your foot was never designed to walk on flat ground. Your foot is a highly evolved, massively complex grasping tool. It was originally an extra hand, designed to wrap around curved tree branches. When we moved to the savannah, evolution didn't replace this hand with a proper foot. It just took those 26 delicate, highly mobile bones, wrapped them in thick skin, and forced them to act as a flat shock absorber. If you want to see what a real bipedal foot is supposed to look like, look at an ostrich. An ostrich has been running on 2 legs for millions of years. It has a massive fused bone structure with just 2 giant toes. It is an indestructible biological spring. Humans, on the other hand, are essentially trying to run marathons while standing on our own modified hands. It is the reason we suffer from collapsed arches, plantar fasciitis, and incredibly fragile ankles. But the punishment of gravity extends far beyond our bones. It actively messes with our internal plumbing. Take the human sinuses. Most animals have massive sinus cavities in their skulls to filter air and produce mucus. Because animals walk with their heads parallel to the ground, their sinus drainage holes are logically located at the bottom of the cavity. Gravity naturally pulls the mucus down and out. When humans stood upright, our faces flattened and our heads shifted back to balance on top of our spines. As a result, the drainage hole for our maxillary sinuses, the largest cavities in our cheeks, was rotated so that it now sits at the very top of the chamber. We have a plumbing system that must drain uphill. Because the mucus has to defy gravity to escape, our sinuses constantly pool with stagnant fluid. This is the sole reason why humans suffer from endless sinus infections, crippling sinus headaches, and congestion. Evolution stood us up, but it completely forgot to reroute the plumbing. Even our most basic biological function, eating, is fraught with structural peril. Because we stood upright and our brains expanded, our faces were pushed inward. This forced our voice box, the larynx, to drop deep into our throats. This dropping of the larynx is what gives humans the incredible ability to produce complex articulated speech. It is the anatomical basis of language, but it created a lethal intersection. Unlike almost any other mammal, the pathway for the air we breathe and the pathway for the food we eat cross over the exact same tube in a human throat. Because of this structural overlap, humans are the only mammals that frequently choke to death on their own food. Every time you swallow a piece of meat or a sip of water, a tiny flap of cartilage called the epiglottis has to perfectly time its closure to prevent you from drowning in your own dinner. We trade the safety of eating for the ability to speak. We trade the stability of 4 legs for the freedom of our hands. We trade a perfect pain-free spine for a brain that can comprehend the universe. When you feel a sudden ache in your lower back, or your knee throbs when it rains, or you suffer from a brutal sinus headache, you're not just experiencing getting older, you are feeling the physical echoes of a 6-million-year-old biological compromise. The human body is an evolutionary Frankenstein. We are a collection of retrofitted primate parts forced to operate in a gravitational orientation we were never originally built for. We are not perfectly designed machines. We are a walking, breathing paradox. We took a broken chassis, forced it to stand upright, and used the hands it freed to conquer the entire planet. We are the masters of the earth, but we will spend our entire lives collapsing under the weight of our own existence.